pour out some of my spirit upon every sort of flesh. Now, what else did Joel say? Let's go to 21. And everyone who calls on the name of Jehovah will be saved. That's how we look at the scripture. Every scripture is backed up by 2 or more scriptures. No scripture stands alone. Thus, not left up to interpretation, because if you have 5 scriptures that say the same thing, it cannot be interpreted. Alright, getting back to God's name. In replacing God's name with titles, Bible translators make a serious mistake. They make God seem remote and impersonal, whereas the Bible urges humans to cultivate an intimacy with God. We read the scripture earlier in our first video, Psalms 25:14. The intimacy with Jehovah belongs to those fearful of him. Now, this fearful, when you look at the original Hebrew word, does not denote a morbid fear, like you're afraid of someone stabbing you because it's dark and they have a mask on and they have a knife in their hand. It's not that type of fear. This is the type of fear where, with your parents, you don't want to do anything wrong because you don't want to hurt them, so you're afraid of causing them hurt, so you choose not to do a certain thing. It's that type of fear of displeasing. It says also his covenants, and to cause them to know it. You see, he wants people not only to know his name, but also to know his covenants or his promises, so that they can place hope and faith in it. Getting back to the paragraph, think of an intimate friend of yours. How close would you really be if you only knew him as, hey, what's up? That wouldn't be a friendship. That would be a passing acquaintance. But for your best friend, just imagine if you didn't even know his name. How would you communicate? It wouldn't be possible. I know you're thinking that, yeah, it would be possible. No, it wouldn't, because he wouldn't be your best friend. He wouldn't be a close friend, because you wouldn't know. You wouldn't even know his name, so how could you call him a friend? Well, similarly, when people are kept in ignorance about God's name, Jehovah, how can they truly become God's friend? And the Bible invites people to become God's friend. Furthermore, when people do not use God's name, they lack knowledge of its wonderful meaning. Now, what does the divine name Jehovah means? Here's an interesting scripture that's often quoted by many. They say this is God's name. No, this is not God's name. This is the meaning of his name. Notice how he replies. And in the original Hebrew, the name Jehovah appears in this scripture at Exodus 13, 14, and 15. Now notice what he says, and this is Moses, and just before Moses is to go to Pharaoh. As a matter of fact, let's go right there to the scripture, and let's read Exodus 3, 13, 14, and 15. And that's going to be this little short paragraph here. Well, it's actually not too short, but we're going to read the whole thing, 13, 14, and 15. It says, Nevertheless, Moses said to the true God, Suppose I am come to the sons of Israel, and I do say to them, The God of your forefathers has sent me to you. And they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? At this God said to Moses, I shall prove to be what I shall prove to be. And he added, This is what you are to say to the sons of Israel. I shall prove to be has sent me to you. Then God said once more to Moses, This is what you are to say to the sons of Israel. Jehovah, the God of your forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name to time indefinite, and this is a memorial of me to generation after generation. Did you notice that? He said this was his name, not names plural, but names singular, to time indefinite. Time indefinite means forever, especially when referenced in the scripture. It means infinity. And it says it's a memorial of him. It's a way for everyone to not only recognize, but remember him. From generation to generation. Now, what is he telling us when he says, I shall prove to be? What does that I shall prove to be mean? Well, there are several scriptures in the Bible. One, incidentally, is at Isaiah. And we're going to turn there. I'm trying to see if I can do a quick scan and go definitely right to that, but I can't. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm actually going to have to take us to Isaiah, and we're going to go to Isaiah the 55th chapter. And in Isaiah the 55th chapter, we're going to look at verse number, I believe it is 11. So give me 1 second as I turn there. And again, we're going to look at verse number 11. And after this video, there are so many other subjects that we could get into. I'm sorry, we're going to start from verse number 8 to 11. There's so many other videos we can get into, so many other topics. But after this video, it will be the first segment of Genesis, the first chapter and the second chapter. Then the next video will be the third chapter and fourth chapter. And then the next video after that will be the fifth chapter, and we will cover 6 through 10. Because there are certain things about what happened in the past, as far as the Bible is concerned, a lot of people are misunderstanding. Why? Because they are failing to notice what it says. They're reading what it says, but they're failing to notice what it says. And so what we're going to do is we're going to point out what it actually says as opposed to what we think it says. Well, notice how we get the definition of what he meant by I shall prove to be. In Isaiah 55:8 through 11 it says, and I'm going to highlight this so that you'll see exactly where I'm reading. For the thoughts of you people are not my thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, is the utterance of Jehovah. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For just as the pouring rain descends, and the snow, from the heavens, and does not return to that place, unless it actually saturates the earth and makes it produce and sprout, and seed is actually given to the sower, and bread to the eater. Here is the meaning of the name. So my word that goes forth from my mouth will prove to be. It will not return to me without result, but it will certainly do that which I have delighted, and it will have certain success in that for which I have sent it. His name simply means he will keep his word. That's what he means by he says, I will prove to be. Whatever he says he's going to do, he will prove himself to do that. Now how do we know? Because he says it here, and he says it 3 more times in Genesis. And then he gives us an illustration so that we can have an understanding. Remember, this is him saying it. This is, in verse number 8, it says, for the thoughts of you people are not my thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, is the utterance of Jehovah. He's telling you, and understanding who he is, you can't think like a man. He is explaining exactly who he is. Why is he telling this to the people? Well, look at verse number 6. Verse number 6 makes it clear. It says, search for Jehovah, you people, while he may yet be found. Call to him while he proves to be near. Let the wicked man leave his way, and the harmful man his thoughts, and let him return to Jehovah, who will have mercy upon him, and our God, for he will forgive in a large way. He's begging people to turn to him and to call on him. But how can they call on him if they don't know his name? Now, if you don't believe me when I tell you how can they call on him if they don't know his name, go ahead and look at what Paul says in Romans the 10th chapter, verse, I believe it's 13 through 15. Well, since I opened my mouth on it, I might as well turn there. Again, Romans the 10th chapter, 13 through 15. Let's see what Paul had to say about this name and about knowing who he is. Let's start with 11. I said 13 through 15, and 13 through 15 is exactly where we need to be. But let's start with 11. It says, for the scripture says, none that rests his faith on him will be disappointed. For there is no distinction between the Jew and the Greek. For there is the same Lord over all, who is rich to all those calling upon him. For everyone who calls on the name of Jehovah will be saved. There's that scripture that backs up Acts, Joel, and Zephaniah. Those are the 3 scriptures. We've already read Acts and Joel, and Zephaniah is the same one that helps us understand that. And here's the 4th scripture that talks about individuals calling upon the name of Jehovah. Not names, plural, but names, singular. 4 scriptures letting us know that not only does he have a name, but individuals need to call upon it if they want life. 14.